Berardi Immigration Law is a great resource for the latest in immigration news and trends. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel. It really helps out the channel. And click that notification bell so you never miss a video from Berardi Immigration Law.
Hi, I am Gabriella Agustinelli, and I'm an attorney with Berardi Immigration Law. The purpose of this video is to go over everything you need to know for your L-1A submission at a port of entry. As a Canadian citizen, you're able to apply for an L-1 work permit directly at the port of entry, whether it's at the land border or at an airport, if this is a pre-clearance location throughout Canada. Now, first, what is an L-1? Well, we call the L-1 the intercompany transferee, and it's essentially for individuals who've worked for a company for 1 full year outside the United States in a managerial role, and they have a need to be transferred to an affiliated operation in the U.S. in a similar role, and that we finally have to show that both companies are active entities that are doing business. Well, in order to apply for an L-1, we first need to make an entry to the United States. So let's talk about logistics first, and then we'll go over talking points for the actual interview. So when you're coming to apply for an L-1, you must be coming from Canada. You need to cross the border into the United States, whether that's at a land port of entry or at an airport of entry. Now, if you're applying at an airport of entry, you need to have a ticket in hand for entry to the United States that day. Otherwise, you will not be able to be seen by Customs and Border Protection to apply for status. If you're applying at a land port of entry or at an airport of entry, you're going to go through the regular entry line and you're going to tell Customs, I'm here to apply for an L-1 work permit, and they will then escort you to the secondary inspection area. Quick note for those who are applying for L-1 status at the Peace Bridge, you are going to need to furnish them with an appointment time and a confirmation number because the Peace Bridge does require appointments, unlike other ports of entry. When you go over into the secondary inspection area, you will sit and you will wait until your name is called. You might see other people who get called up before you because those people are generally going to be admitted simply as visitors, and your cases are only going to be handled by officers who are authorized to actually adjudicate these kinds of cases. So that's why you might see that it's taking a bit of time for your name to be called. So when your name is called, you're going to stand up there either to answer questions while they review everything, or they're going to have you sit down while they review and call you back up. And by the way, guys, this is not going to be like a sit-down interview in a separate room. You're most of the time standing up at a counter behind a plexiglass surface, and you're answering questions from the government officer who's standing on the opposite side as you. The typical questions that are asked in an L-1 visa appointment is, first and foremost, what do you do for your business? Now, you're applying for L-1A. L-1A is what we call a manager or executive category. If you're a high-level decision maker at your company, this is the category for you. Now, we have to show that you have a widespread discretionary authority position within your company, that you either are a people manager with individuals who report to you directly and will continue to do so in the United States, or you are a function manager that may not have direct reports, but you oversee some aspect of your business at a higher level, so that maybe you're not the one doing all the on-the-ground work or implementation of your strategic decisions and the directives that you have, but you have a very high level of authority with regard to that function. So with those kinds of cases, yes, you don't have direct reports, but you're going to be making the case that you still operate at a senior level within your organization. So when we are applying for an L-1A, first, it's very important that you take a look at the letter of support that we have drafted for you. This letter of support can be found right before the table of contents, and it's going to go over all of your duties. And it's going to go over a little bit about the company, a little bit about how both companies, how they're affiliated, and your credentials. So the questions are going to ask, what do? You want whatever your answer is to resonate with what's written in that letter of support. And you also want to be able to flip through the application documents in advance to your appointment so that you have an understanding of where the company financials are, where the evidence of how these companies are affiliated, and how all of that works is included in your petition. Because you may get questions also about the nature of how the company does business, how many employees it has, where its offices are located, and how the company in Canada and the company in the United States are properly related to each other. Who's the common owner? How does that all work? There might be other questions the government asks. How long will you be here? Where will you be when you're in the United States? And there really is no wrong answer. The most important focus of this interview is going to be establishing with the officer that you in fact do hold a high-level position with the company. So when you're talking about what you do, we want to use words like manage, lead, oversee, direct. Super important to sell the narrative that you really are who you claim to be. So assuming that the officer is happy with everything and is deemed that it's going to approve you, the next thing he or she is going to do is take a picture of you on a little camera, and will then take your electronic fingerprints. It will then, a few minutes later, process you for payment, and that can either be paid through check, credit card, or cash. And it will come to a total of $960 for first-time applicants or $460 for subsequent applicants. When you are checking out, it's important to note also that you are not going to be given a stamp in your passport or a card in your passport any longer indicating your admission status or approval period. The government has recently started phasing this out so that you're not going to get any evidence of your approval that day. However, for L-1 applicants, subsequent to that actual approval, weeks or months later, a sister agency, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, will issue you an approval notice. We call this Form I-797. This is going to be mailed to you and should be carried at every entry to the United States. But in the meantime, before you get that notice, you can make entries to the United States, and you can do so using your passport, and then using the link below here, you can run your electronic I-94 admission record by using the information on your passport biodata page. And that will indicate the length of your approval period, which, by the way, can be limited if your passport expires prior to the end of the approval period granted to you. So, just a note to anyone with a passport expiring before the L-1 expires for you, when you get your new passport, you will then be able to enter the United States to gain the remaining portion of your 3-year or however long approval period. I want to make a note about what happens if this doesn't go well and we really feel like the officer's not understanding us and this is going downhill fast. Well, there's 3 options you have. The first thing, you want to ask the officer, can you please call my attorney to clarify this issue? Or can you allow me to call the attorney so we can chat? And our number is placed at the bottom of the cover letter on that L-1 petition, so feel free to call us whenever you'd like. Next thing you can do is ask to speak to a supervisor. Perhaps you could talk more sense into that supervisor, or perhaps your attorney can do so for you. That often is a helpful tool. And finally, if you feel like there's no way this is going to be approved, you're not seeing eye to eye, and you just want to be done with the experience, well, what you can do in that situation is ask the government if you can withdraw your application for admission. Now, this is good because what we're doing is we're effectively saying to the government, you know what? I just want to go home. I'm done. I no longer want to enter the United States. Forget this ever happened. Let's go. We want this to happen before an outright denial happens, because if an outright denial happens, there's really nothing we can do to rehabilitate this matter. But if we've gotten a withdrawal, we have a second chance at going and fixing this situation on another try into the United States. Finally, I want to make a note for Nexus holders. If you don't have Nexus to begin with, I highly recommend that you obtain it. It's $50. It's good for 5 years. You're able to use it at both the airport of entry and the land port of entry, and it really streamlines travel for you. It makes everything go a lot faster. If you already have one and you haven't already held a work permit in the United States, chances are that the default setting on your Nexus card is B1 or B2 visitor. Now, it's important that if you are issued L1 status, you go to a Nexus kiosk or center in person, whether in Canada or in the United States, and ask for them to update that Nexus so that your status is now registered as L1. And that's important so that every time you enter the United States, you are now being admitted in L1 status, which means you can then be legally authorized to perform work in the United States. If you do not do this, and you enter under the default visitor setting, and you thereafter perform work in the United States, you are then technically in violation of status, and we want to avoid that. The maximum period of time you can be approved for is 3 years, and typically the ports of entry will issue initial and extensions in 3-year increments. But it might differ depending on everybody's situation. If you have any question about your status, about your upcoming appointment, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be happy to help. But good luck on your interview. You're gonna do great, and safe travels to the United States. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like our video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit that notification button so you never miss one of these important updates. Also, check out the Berardi blog that's on our website at berardiimmigrationlaw.com. The blog is updated 2 to 3 times a week, contains tons of up-to-date information on policies and trends. You won't want to miss it.